Welcome to the She Wins podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin, and today I am interviewing the remarkable Berkley Bryant. She is Miss Volunteer America. I've known her for several years, and we talk a little bit about that, a little about her journey, but a lot about her personal life and some of the things that have been going on that have been challenging, but have also made her journey so incredibly heartfelt and important. So please watch. All right, Berkley, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm blessed to have you.
Oh, stop. Oh my gosh. It's so good to see you. And thank you for having me.
So tell everybody a little bit about you, maybe your backstory in pageantry.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Berkley Bryant, and I'm the current Miss Volunteer America. My pageant journey started a long time ago, though. So, I am 24 years old now and really did my first pageant when I was 13 years old. So, this has been over a decade now that I've been on pageant stages in my state in South Carolina. So, I'm from Anderson, South Carolina, but actually grew up in a military family, so moved across the country a good bit. I've lived in Texas, I've been out to Colorado, and then lived in Alabama for a long time, finally found home in South Carolina. So my dad served in the Air Force for 20 years. And in terms of pageantry, it's funny because really the reason I got involved in pageants was because of the service aspect and also talent, because talent was really special to me growing up. I grew up a dancer. One of my biggest dreams was to dance for Clemson University, which is where I went to college. So I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing and a minor in biological sciences from Clemson University. Also got to live out that dream of dancing at Clemson and remembered my 4 years like it was yesterday. I mean, I wish I could go back. I was a tour guide. I was super involved on campus, was in the sorority, whole bit. So that's a little bit about my background, and ultimately found Miss Volunteer America again because the pageantry that I fell in love with when I was 13 years old is exactly who and what Miss Volunteer America is today, and I'm so excited to share more about that today.
Well, and it's kind of a newer system. So have you found that being Miss Volunteer America is also an opportunity to kind of network and recruit and bring people on board? Have you found that it's been that an easy task for you or difficult? What's that been
Well,
like?
it's funny because, I went to school for marketing. So it kind of just fell in my lap. And honestly, the opportunity and the challenge of becoming Miss Volunteer America and really utilizing kind of those marketing skills, those communication skills in the professional world has really allowed me to become a successful Miss Volunteer America in networking, and also me being involved in pageantry for so long. I have so many connections like you and so many other amazing individuals that have been a part of this journey with me. And so it's been really special to kind of see those people follow me into Miss Volunteer America and what this year is all about. So I think it's been a challenge at points, but also been a really big blessing because I get to utilize those skills every day.
Okay, so one of the questions I ask everyone, how do you define winning?
Ooh, well, for me, one of the things when it comes to the win, I tell girls this all the time. The win is not the win itself. It's everything that you did to get there. So the win to me has always really been about the lives you touch and the things that you've done to encourage people along the way. And for me, that win was about so many people, right? It was a win for my family. It was a win for the people who have been involved in pageantry with me for so long. And so when I tell a girl that the win isn't the win itself, it's what you did to get there, I think it really hits home with people because then the process becomes so much more enjoyable. And you realize that you're there for so much more than just a crown. And it honestly has been like that for me this entire journey because I knew I was growing in the process. And so if we can find a win in the growth and the lives you've touched and the people that you've changed for the better, I think that that's the win. That's the win to me. And so I think that if I can just change one life or touch one person, then I've done my job. And I think that everyone can kind of take something away from having that mindset, especially when it comes to stepping into an interview room or stepping onto a pageant stage. I think that's really important.
So then speaking of that, how have you changed or in a sense won before the crown was placed on your head?
So there's a lot of changes in Berkley Bryant over the last several years, and I think one of them is life experience. And I can vividly remember about 2 years ago now, so a little more than 2 years ago. Heather, you know probably where I'm going with this, but my mom was actually diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And not a lot of people knew that at the time, and still maybe not don't know that about my story, just because my mom is a very private person and we kind of wanted to handle that privately as a family with close friends. And so it's been a really tough battle over the last 2 years. To be diagnosed at stage 4 was never something I thought I would have to experience in my lifetime. You hear the word cancer and you never think it's going to happen to you or your family. And so I think for me, it was a huge perspective shift of what's really important in life. And a little backstory, mom actually competed in Miss Texas back in the day. So I have to tell you that pageants were a big part of her life too. She didn't tell me I had to compete in pageants, but it definitely made her happy and brings her a lot of joy to kind of see me grow in the process. But I would say that I've changed so much because of that experience. And I value so much more the time we have with family and the inspiration that she's become for me, the strength that she's experienced, the courage, and just overall the powerful woman that she is in my life. I think that I've really embodied a lot of those characteristics along the way. And so to end up knowing that Miss Volunteer America was going to be my last pageant ever, to think that she was able to be there for that process and watch me work so hard to get there. And then ultimately to walk away with the crown, that was just the best ending we could have imagined. But she has certainly been our rock in this process.
I remember before the diagnosis working with you, and then I remember also afterwards. And there's no way that doesn't change you as an individual. Right. And I mean, you're amazing beforehand, and obviously I think very grounded and very confident and very sure of yourself and all of that. True. But I do personally see the perspective shift, especially going into Miss Volunteer America, knowing like we're not really talking about it. We're going to be quiet about it. Mom deserves,
right,
to fight her own battle in privacy. But then also knowing that internally, that was why you wanted it so bad. So anyway.
Yeah. And I remember us having so many conversations about my mom's story and the fact that it is her story, not mine. Right. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that was really important to remember. And I remember going into my interview at Miss Volunteer America and saying to myself, okay, Berkley, if it comes up, if they ask me about, one of the biggest challenges I've had leading up to now, or whatever the case may be, if it comes up naturally, the good Lord was going to make that happen if her story needed to be heard in that room. However, it actually did not. And I remember talking to you about this too. And I'm honestly grateful that it did in a way, because I think a lot of people have this misconception about when you're going through something hard that we have to just like magnify it for the world to see, and almost like a pity kind of thing, or a sympathy, or whatever you might imagine when it comes to a girl talking about a story that's happened in her life. And I never once wanted anyone to pity her or me or anything like that, because at the end of the day, she's strong. And so I want people to see her as that. And I'm so grateful that now with a national platform, I'm able to speak on her story in terms of strength, in terms of courage. And I didn't have to share her story in that room to ultimately become Miss Volunteer America. But now I get to speak on her strength and her inspiration that has been a huge part of my life.
So obviously that probably is a defining moment in your life, was her diagnosis. But is there anything else or anything more to that story that you would say defined you?
I would say that for sure was a huge turning point, a huge defining moment. There's a lot of words for that. But I think another one that I can think of briefly was actually after becoming Miss Volunteer America in July. I was welcomed home by the Miss South Carolina Volunteer Board, and they had this huge celebration for me, and it was really special. I'd already been on the road for weeks, and so to come home to that was just so special. But I'll never forget walking into that hotel lobby and seeing so many people that, I mean, I hadn't seen in years. And from the ladies that zipped me up in the dressing rooms when I was 13 years old back in 2014, 2013. They showed up for me, and again, competing in another organization and then kind of transferring over to the Miss Volunteer America organization later in life, it was really special to see so many people from both my past and my present, because the national board was there. Allison DeMarcus, Scott Hilburn, Luis Rodriguez, Allison's daughter, Madeline. And so it was really special to see my present, my past, and also my future with that organization. It was so special to see everybody in one room. And I remember that being a huge moment for me. And the waterworks just, I mean, I couldn't even control myself that night because they had presented me with this, the flag that flew over the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. the night I won Miss Volunteer America. That was presented to me. I mean, just things that I never imagined. It was like, wow, we did it. We did it. And it was one of those moments where it took everybody in that room to get to that point. And so that was a really special moment.
So I know that before you competed, you were like, I want to do everything. I want to travel the whole state. And I see your social media enough to know you're doing that. So yeah. Where all have you gone, and how have you been able to include your mom in your journey?
Yeah. So I have been able to travel a lot. So we're at about 21,000 miles at this point, which is insane to think about. I've been to, I think it's 17 states at this point in 4 months, which is wild.
That's pretty good.
I've been to DC. Gosh, I won't be able to list all the states, but just to name a few: Texas. I've been to New York. I've been to South Dakota, Wyoming, Tennessee, DC. I'm leaving out a lot, but regardless, I've been everywhere. And so it's been really special and honestly a huge learning curve for me, because I did grow up in a military family. So I was familiar with different parts of the country. But in terms of the travel, I haven't been on a ton of airplanes recently. So I think I've taken more flights in 4 months than I have in my whole life, guaranteed. So it's been really crazy to kind of learn the tricks of travel and that sort of thing. So that's been fun. But also, you mentioned how I stay connected with my mom and my family, and they have still been my rock, and I still call them every single night. And wherever I am, I always make time for those phone calls. And usually wherever I am, I'm in a place where those people are extremely understanding and welcoming. They know I'm a human. And it's, in terms of being Miss Volunteer America, they know that I have a family back home and I probably want to make a phone call or whatever the case may be. So they're very understanding of that. And so I always do that at night, whether I'm in a hotel room or wherever I am. And so I also send a lot of pictures. That's kind of how we stay in touch. And again, it's just like when I was a state title holder, we've talked about this, the FaceTimes and the pictures, being able to show her at the end of the day, this is what I did. This is who I touched. This is who I met. Those things fill her cup, and so it also fills mine. And so I have to do that for my mental health, honestly, to be able to stay grounded and knowing the good, the bad, the emotional, all the things, juggling it all and really putting it into words with my family each night. They get the emotional side, they get the exciting side, they get it all. And so that's what family's for, and I'm really grateful that we have technology where I'm able to do that every night.
So it's been 2 years since she was diagnosed. How is she doing now?
She's doing okay. So you were a part of this, but in April was when she really started full-blown chemo, is kind of the way I look at it. So the first year was oral chemotherapy, and then we kind of went into bone infusions, and now we're at full-blown chemotherapy. And one of the things that I love talking about now is I never thought that I would be the one to help get her a wig that she was really proud to wear. And so thanks to pageantry and the connections, you never know what pageantry will bring you in life. I never thought that my involvement in pageantry would help me get that, but now here we are. And so I was able to get her a really nice wig that she actually wore for the first time in public at Miss Volunteer America, which was also really special. And now she has to wear it every day, considering how much of the hair loss she's experienced. And so once again, just kind of a reminder of You never know the connections you have and the people you meet, where it's going to take you and when you might need that later. And that's a prime example of that.
So, what's your advice to someone? Maybe they're going through something really challenging, but they have a big dream. Because I think that's really difficult when here you have this stressful experience, and then at the same time you have this goal.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go for the goal and still honor the struggle, if that makes sense?
Oh, 100%. It makes sense. And it is hard. I'm not going to lie. It is hard. And it takes a lot of strength, a lot of courage, a lot of prayer, and a lot of soul searching to figure out if this is really something you want to continue doing. Because for me, I'd worked so hard for so many years, and I knew that I didn't want to let her down. And so for me, it was fuel. It was fuel for my journey. It was fuel for the success I was able to ultimately achieve. I worked 10 times harder than I ever would have worked. And I think a lot of people would say that I was already a hard worker. So it's
Absolutely.
kind of crazy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's kind of crazy to think that it fueled me that much more, but I can promise you it did. And it was, and it still is my fuel to keep going and know that I'm impacting people along the way, regardless of the circumstances. And so just knowing that you can push through and it's going to inspire someone else to do the same. The amount of girls that I talked to at the national competition or even after becoming Miss Volunteer America, I remember I was at Salvation Army headquarters and there was an intern named Leah, and maybe she'll listen to this, maybe she won't, but I actually helped her with one of her final projects. She's a senior in college at Georgetown and is an intern there in DC. And her mom unfortunately lost her battle to breast cancer. And she heard me talking about my mom to one of the employees, and she subtly asked me if I could help her with her capstone project. And so I was able to do a little interview with her and talking about how being in the spotlight while also battling something really tough can affect your life. And so it was again one of those moments where you see the impact and you see how sharing your story can make a difference.
Do you think that people misinterpret pageant girls and just
For sure.
assume that they have it all together because they look picture
Yeah.
perfect? What do you say to people
Yes.
like that?
I usually talk about my story and I talk about the life experiences I've had. I mean, even just this year, I mean, I'm a national brand ambassador for the Salvation Army. I'm a national brand ambassador for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, but yet I'm going through my own challenges and experiences in my personal life. And so I think a lot of people see me as this person who has never had any difficulties and is
Mm-hmm.
just, having a great life. But then there's this behind the scenes. And so I try my very best that every conversation I have, that they see all sides of Berkley Bryant. They don't just see Miss Volunteer America Berkley Bryant, they see who she is without it. And that comes with sharing your story, sharing your struggles. And it's 2024. A lot of people are way more open to talking about their struggles, especially when it comes to mental health and the experiences that we have in life. And so for me, I want to be a representation of that in every conversation. And I hope that up until this point, I've tried to do a good job of that.
So, speaking of mental health, because I think people are watching going, wow, I don't know that I could do that. Travel the entire country, represent multiple brands, and then at the same time have a mom fighting for her life. Like, how do you stay mentally strong throughout this whole process? What's your secrets?
So again, it's not easy. I think a lot of people, just because I'm juggling it all doesn't mean I do it well. And so there are days, right, when you have your days when they're just not the best. And so I think, again, having those conversations at night and having a grounded support system has helped me tremendously because I don't know I genuinely don't know what I would do without them. And whether it's family, whether it's your board of directors or whatever it is, I'm talking to the pageant girls out there, I guess, you know, really rely on them and allow them to pour into you because at the end of the day, you are only able to inspire other people with what you have to give. And so if you are running low on what you have to give, then the outcome is not going to be great in that situation. So I want to be able to give 100% of me every day. And so in order to do that, you've got to get refueled and refilled with why you do what you do every day. And so I think that understanding your why, relying on your faith and your family and your support system, that's how I've gotten through it and will be successful from it. And so I think whether you're a pageant girl or not, I think that that's something that we can all apply to life.
What I hear you say is you find people who pour into you so that you will be full enough to pour into others.
That's right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you're not having people investing into you, then you're not going to have anything left to be able
Yeah.
to invest into those around you. And having a title, which a lot of people don't realize, is it's not about you at all. It's about
Yeah.
everyone else. It's like the only time it's about you is the 30 seconds that you're like waving and saying, thank you, I won. And then after that, it's about everybody
Yeah.
else. And
Go ahead.
that can be tiring and that can be draining. But if you have those people pouring back into you, and like you said, those nightly phone calls that you make in order to reset, reground, regroup, smart.
It's everything. It's everything. And it's funny you mentioned the 30 seconds of fame that you get. And it's funny because that's the video that's played all year long. And so
Mm-hmm.
people think that that's the everyday. It's really just not. You spend your year, hence the name volunteer, right? We give ourselves to other people every single day. And that comes from local title holders, state title holders, and even me as the national title holder. That's consistent across the board. And so it's obviously a great representation of the life of Miss Volunteer America when one morning I'm at Harlem Soup Kitchen and then the next night I'm at Cherry Hills New York Fashion Week. Very descriptive of the job of Miss Volunteer America. And so being able to kind of juggle the emotions of certain appearances and then resetting for the next is also another huge lesson that I was not great at the beginning. Separating them because I'm a very emotional person, you know this.
Mm-hmm.
And so separating emotions and almost treating it like a job because, they say, oh, leave work at work kind of thing. For me, it's leave that appearance at that appearance. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
always remember those conversations, but let's not go to bed thinking about if Johnny is going to have a good day tomorrow or if their family is going to be okay or whatever the situation is. So being able to kind of separate each appearance as each appearance and knowing that you made the impact in that moment and check that box and move on to the next to go inspire someone else.
So, for people who don't know what Miss Volunteer America is, can you talk about, what are the phases of competition? How does it work? What did you win besides
Yeah,
the
of
opportunity to
course.
travel the country? Tell us more.
Yes. So it is a national scholarship organization and it's based in Tennessee. And at the end of the day, the mission is to empower young women to pursue educational scholarships and afford them extraordinary opportunities along the way because of it. And so for me, I won a $50,000 scholarship, which means that I'm officially debt free. Yay! Thanks to a pageant, which is awesome.
Woohoo!
And then I'm also like I mentioned earlier, a brand ambassador for Salvation Army and St. Jude. And so volunteerism really is the heart of this program. And speaking of talent, or excuse me, in terms of phases of competition, there's talent, evening gown, interview, and fitness and wellness. And so in fitness and wellness, the Miss compete in swimsuit. So it's very similar to the traditional Miss America phases of competition, but everything is equally weighted. So it is 25, 25, 25, 25. And if you're a pageant girl and you've heard the word consistency, I think that that is very, again, descriptive of who Miss Volunteer America is. She's very well rounded in every phase of competition. It's not just the talent that's weighted more or interview or whatever it is. We really do want that consistent title holder. And this organization has changed my life and it's really an honor to be able to spread who Miss Volunteer America is across the country this year. And I've traveled over 20,000 miles, like I said. So we really are hitting the ground running with telling the world who Miss Volunteer America is and what we have to offer.
What's a last minute advice you want to give? And one more question. And so I just want you to share whatever heartfelt advice you have for anybody who might be watching.
So know why you started. I think that that was extremely important in my journey. Again, if you notice, I competed for many years. And so there was a lot of adversities, a lot of challenges, a lot of losses before I got to Miss Volunteer America. And so knowing why you started and looking back at, for me, it was 13-year-old Berkley. Who would 13-year-old Berkley want to become. I think that's really important to stay grounded in your why and knowing why you started. Is it scholarships? Is it inspiring people? Is it service? What is it for you that makes your journey so special? Because that's going to fuel you throughout your year of service. And then one more piece of advice I would give is to have a plan if you were to win, because you have to bet on yourself. It might be you. And so you're going to enjoy your year so much more if you have a plan for what that year could look like for you. What are some goals that you have personally, professionally, for the organization, whatever that looks like? Have that plan, because I promise you, you'll be so grateful that you did, because you hit the ground running, whether it's a state title holder, a national title holder. So have that plan, because it'll keep you grounded and you'll be way more prepared for the year ahead if you have that plan in mind.
Thank you, Berkley. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to have an extended conversation for my Patreon members. If you are not a Patreon member, I recommend that you join, because we're going to talk more about that plan. We might talk about how we work together over the past several years. It's been a lot of fun. I've seen transformations of Berkley over the last couple of years. I don't even remember how we met, so we're going to have to probably have that conversation. But y'all have a blessed rest of your day. Thank you so much, Berkley, for joining. Like this if you do. Share it with a friend. Have a great one.